Like Ed said, I am the instructor for the jewelry class. And what I teach is um, basically how to make a living making jewelry because there's no shortage of online tutorials and things on YouTube that show you how to make jewelry. But it doesn't show you how to do it in a practical way. And so um, I've been making jewelry for 27 years. This is all I do exclusively. Actually, longer than that. I was raised making jewelry. My father made jewelry my whole life, and he, took care of his whole family, um, making jewelry. He made jewelry for Smithsonian Museum. They also supplied various different stores. And my mom had stores in malls and things of that nature. I took a break from it to go to Bethel, but then when I came out of Bethel, I got back into jewelry again. I've done everything from jewelry repair to manufacturing to now I currently work with diamonds and engagement rings. But there's so many different facets of making jewelry. And this is all I've ever done exclusively as a livelihood, with the exception of 1 month. 1 month I worked with a career coaching firm. I didn't like it and I went back to jewelry. So when I was designing this class with Ed, I wanted it to be, I didn't just want to teach you how to do cool things or how to make jewelry you could wear. I wanted to teach you how to do that, but I primarily want to focus on teaching you how to make jewelry that you could sell should you choose to. And you can sell it via your own website, or you can put it on Etsy or Amazon or eBay. But I want it to be things that you could actually sell. I want it to be things that you can learn in a short amount of time. And I want it to be things that you could do in a small shop, perhaps even at home, with tools that you can get off of Amazon that cost $300 or below. Now, that's a pretty amazing thing because my father used to teach jewelry at the University of Maryland. He also taught at Howard University. And his course was 4 years. And the equipment you needed back then was about $50,000 worth of equipment. Nowadays, professional jewelry shops, you need a shop, you need maybe like, if you're doing a super high-end shop, it could go up to like over $100,000 worth of equipment. But most private jewelers are able to operate with about $30,000 worth of equipment. So the biggest challenge was, how do I enable you to make jewelry with about $300 worth of equipment? So what I did was I went on Amazon and I studied all the different, and I also wanted to be convenient to get the equipment, because if you can't get the equipment, what's the point? So I went on Amazon and I basically replicated all the things that I use, and I made sure it's excellent quality and it's within a very reasonable price range. And it's very fortunate, prayerfully, to be able to find everything you need for under $300. Also, the course is designed in such a way that you don't have to spend the $300 up front. You can just take the course and learn it, never spend the $300 on the equipment, because I have all the equipment and you can watch me use it. And then at a later date, if you want to purchase it, you're going to have a supply sheet. And then also too, there's a safety aspect to the course. So I teach you about, the goggles I wear, protective eyewear, things of that nature. Also, how to keep your shop organized, and filtration systems, air purifiers. I have like a lot of filtration systems and air purifiers that are off camera. And I also research materials that you can use that are safe to use, not going to cause you any kind of breathing problems or anything like that. So in jewelry, for example, I use acids to clean my metal, but there are substitutes. So you can use hot vinegar. Okay, you can use hot white vinegar, and that will clean your metal just fine. And then also acids, like if you have a proper shop, I'll steer you towards which acids are very safe to use. They don't cause any kind of health hazards or anything like that. So everything is designed with the friends in mind. I pioneered myself for 14 years, and jewelry is all I did. I worked, now granted, I've been doing this all my life, but my work schedule was usually like maybe 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week working when it was busy, but usually on average, I say between 5 to 10 hours a week. And I was able to full-time pioneer and serve and do everything just fine. So I'm very happy to be able to pass this on and give this opportunity to others who may be interested in a great livelihood, or if you choose not to go in that direction, then at least you have something but you don't have to buy jewelry anymore because you'll know how to make it. Okay, so let's get right into that, right into it. So in the actual class, these things are going to be a little more spread out, but this is kind of a crash course. So I'm going to show you a lot of different things all in one. To start with, this is a piece of wire. So I'm going to have a whole class devoted to wire, how to make it, and also how to purchase it and how to use it in your jewelry. So we're going to be working with a piece of wire today. This is sterling silver. And we're also going to be doing some sheet metal work. So I have a class that's going to be talking about sheet metal, different gauges, thicknesses, how to cut it, how to bend it, how to heat it, how to solder it, all of that. And I have an array of tools here in front of me. And so these are some of the different types of tools you're going to be purchasing off of Amazon. And I'll explain all that to you. So tonight we're going to make at least one ring. Perhaps you might have time to make two. I'm definitely going to make one ring and show you how quickly you can transform this into something that you can actually wear, believe it or not. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my metal cutters. So this is the type of cutters that you use to cut metal. You don't have to be that big. You have smaller ones too. It's just your preference. I like to use bigger ones. And I'm going to use, the first tool I'm going to use, this is my all-time favorite tool. It's called a millimeter gauge digital caliper. I'm kind of a tool geek, but you can actually get this on Amazon now for, I mean, these things run $300-400, but you can get great quality ones on Amazon for about 20 bucks. And what it is it allows you to measure things and it gives you a digital readout of exactly what the measurement is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a measurement on my metal of 4 millimeters. I'm going to put 4 millimeters on my digital caliper. And I'm going to tighten it so it's locked in place. It's not perfectly exactly 4 millimeters, but close enough. And then I'm going to score my metal. So I'm going to make a line. This is my metal, make a line on it. Cross it like that. And what I'm doing is I'm putting the caliper on top of the metal so it's hooked in like that. And then I'm pressing pressure into the metal with the other part of the caliper, and then I'm pulling it across it like that. What that does is it leaves a line in the metal. Can everybody see that? Not if you can see it. See the line? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my metal cutting scissors, and just like you learned how to cut paper in kindergarten, we're just doing it with metal. And it doesn't matter if it's gold, silver, brass, bronze, copper. It's pretty much all the same. I remember one of the first things my father taught me was don't be afraid of the metal. Learn that you have more control over the metal than it has over you, and you can make it do what you want it to do. And so once you have that kind of attitude about these different metals, then you'll understand not to be intimidated by them, but to get them to do what you want them to do. So it doesn't matter if it's gold, silver, copper, that's the goal. So now I have my
Michael, can I ask you a question? Is
Sure.
that gold you're dealing with there? Is that gold you just cut?
So I have gold. This is actually a piece of brass.
Oh, that's brass.
This is gold. Okay. Now, the techniques that I'm teaching, you can use them in any metal. Now, I'm using brass because, again, it's affordable and it's something that everyone can easily get access to, and you can sell it just fine. But I have gold, and I actually have a section tonight if we get to it. This is another piece of gold. I'm going to show you how to make more modern day kind of high-end jewelry. And this will involve gold and also setting a stone. So hopefully we'll have time to get to that tonight. I'm going to start with this one. Now, what I'm going to use is my curve cutters. And these are scissors that have a little curvature to them. And what they do is they allow me to cut circular shapes a lot better. Okay. And with my curve cutters, I'm going to just cut little niches all the way along the metal. And you'll see in the end the cool thing that I'm making. Maybe some of you can guess what it is before I get to it. If you can, maybe you can just like type a little in the message what you think it is as I'm going. But I'm going to make little niches along the edge. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting just like a little curve into it. See if you can see that. One second. There's little curves like that I'm cutting. And so I'm going to do that all the way up the metal, cutting little curves. And also, so for the actual class, I'm going to screen share something with you real quick. For the actual class, I'm going to have a camera set up, overhead camera set up. That will look something like this here. Everyone see that? And so you'll be able to see a better view of exactly what it is I'm doing. Was everyone able to see that? Okay, cool. So, but for now, we'll just do this because we're doing a quick class. I'll just do it like this. Okay, so I'm going to make these little cuts all the way up. So I'm going all the way up, making little angular cuts into the metal. Little angular cuts. And I'm spacing these about maybe like a 1/4 inch apart. But again, like if you have a hard time with spacing, you can always make little marks on the metal yourself with a pencil, and you can use the digital caliper to know how to space them out, or you can use a ruler and draw little lines onto the metal so that you can get the spacing perfect. But for this, you'll see why it doesn't have to be perfect. Do you see what I just did there? Okay, now I'm going to turn it the opposite way, and I'm going to do the same thing. But I'm going to do it on the opposite side. I'm going to do this all the way up one by one. It's a little tedious. Now, usually what I have on is I have some nice tunes on my headphones, or I might have a nice audio book playing, or even the broadcast, or you can have like one of our mini programs on, whatever it is you like. And you can kind of just get into your own little therapeutic zone of making jewelry. Making jewelry is extremely therapeutic, that's for sure. I can definitely say it's stress-free. It's very enjoyable. The only thing that adds stress is when you get deadlines or difficult clients or customers. But other than that, it's very enjoyable, and it's very productive. I would even describe it almost like therapy, you know, just to be able to sit down and make a nice piece of jewelry, to transform something from a piece of metal or a piece of stone into something someone can wear. My father, funny story, he used to, you know how there's always the sister who gives out candy at the Kingdom Hall? My dad was the guy who would always give out jewelry. So I don't think I have to tell you, he was very popular. So I made all my little cuts, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my pliers. You can also get these off of Amazon. Now the jewelry pliers, these things can go for like $75 each. But now on Amazon, you can get them for like 10 of them in a pack for $10. And they're pretty good. So you see, I did a lot of research for you to make sure you don't have to break the bank to do this. So now I'm taking out each one of the individual little pieces that I just cut. Okay? Taking my pliers and I'm taking out each one of the little pieces I just cut. All right, so I'm gonna do that, and bear with me because this looks, why is he doing that? What's the point? But trust me, this is gonna be very cool when it all comes together. So taking out all the little individual in-between pieces. Make sure I'm doing this on camera so you can see. One by one. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. You know, there's different ways to do things. I'm just showing you a simple way that I like to do things. But, you know, there's different techniques to approach this kind of thing. You can, you know, there's even machines you can roll it through that'll cut it out in this shape for you, should you desire. But this is a very simple way to do it, and I like to do it, and I don't mind spending a little bit extra time. We're almost done. We only got about 5 of them left. And another thing about jewelry is you never want to work in a carpeted area because you'll end up with little shards of metal. And so you don't want that in a carpeted area. You want to be on a hardwood floor, concrete floor, something like that. And also, stuff always flies out of your hand. So that's another reason why carpet, very hard to find a diamond in carpet. Trust me on that. Okay, so now I'm going to use my flat nose pliers. These are also on Amazon. And these are nice because you just squeeze the metal and it flattens it out. But there's other ways you can flatten it out too, like you can put it on a flat piece of steel and just hammer it. But I'm going to just use my flat nose pliers. We're keeping it simple tonight, and I'm just going to go along the whole thing, squeeze each part of it flat that I just cut. Now, as you see, I got a nice ripple effect. Okay. So, what in the world am I going to make with this? Well, you're going to see. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next is, because I cut it, this edge is very jagged, very sharp. It'll cut your finger. So, this is called a sander wheel. And again, you can get these on Amazon for a very cheap price. And this is what's called a flex shaft drill. Basically a dentist drill. I hope that doesn't traumatize you. But this is basically a dentist drill. And I don't know if you can hear it, but when I cut it off and on, it makes that familiar sound when you go to the dentist. So it spins very fast, very high RPMs, but I have a foot pedal that you can't see that controls how fast it goes. So I can make it go very slow. I can make it go a whole lot faster. And what I'm going to do with this is this is like a sandpaper around here, is I'm going to run across the top edge of this just to smooth everything out. And because of the shape, it's dipping down in between the middle, and it's like rounding everything out nice and smooth, getting it nice and smooth, nice and smooth. Now look, just that fast, nice and smooth. Okay, now here's the cool part. Now I'm going to have a metal class that talks about how you can put metal in different states, soft and hard. But I'll just show you what it is I'm doing. So this metal right here is not too bad, but it's not in its softest, most malleable state. Here's a big trick that most people don't know. With metal, you have, especially in jewelry, you have two states that you can have it in. You want to finish it in its hardest state, but when you're working with it, you want it to be in its softest state. And the way you get it soft is you heat it. Now you can't heat it with a blow dryer or a hair dryer. You have to use fire. Now again, once again, I found safe and affordable torches. Safe is the key word that you can purchase on Amazon. Torches can range in price from $300 up to $4,000 for a professional jewelry torch. Or on Amazon, you can get a torch that's just as good for about 16 bucks. And it won't blow your house up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to heat this metal so that it's more malleable and a lot easier for me to use, because I don't want to tear my hands up. Okay. So I got my torch on, and I'm going to get, these are called jewelry tweezers. And so I'm going to use this to hold the metal so I don't burn my hands while I'm heating it. This is a micro water torch. So I use this for safety reasons, because here in New York City, getting separate spaces, especially down in the city, is very difficult. So I'm renting a small little shop area, but it's in an enclosed room. So I use a water torch, and the hydro torch, it doesn't hold on to like dangerous gases that could explode. But you won't necessarily need this. These things are super expensive. They go up to $4,000, but you can get them for $300. They work just fine. The torch you can use is a butane torch. It's a lot smaller, and it does the trick just fine. You can even use a torch that you get from the hardware store. So that's my torch flame right there. I'm just going to go along the edge of this, heating it up. And I don't know if you can see it, just as soon as it starts to glow, I move the torch. Because I'm not looking to melt it. I just want to get it nice and soft. So as soon as the turn starts to glow, I move the torch. Okay. Now, what you're going to notice is the metal went from that nice golden yellow to that dark brown. And that's what you need acid for, because when you put this in the acid, it brings it back to that nice yellow. Okay. Now, some jewelers will put in the acid each time they heat it. Others will put it at the end of the project. Whichever you want to do is perfectly fine. This is called oxidization. So basically, when the metal gets hot, it's taking the molecules of oxygen in the air and it's kind of attaching it to itself. And then it's kind of burning those molecules. And you're getting what's called fire scale. Now, like I said, the hot vinegar takes that right off. I use what's called, I forget which kind of acid it's called. We call it pickle in the industry. Now I'm just going to dip this in water real quick to get it so it's cooled down so I can touch it. And I wish you could feel how soft this is. I mean, look at that. With a pinky finger, it's that soft. It's that malleable. So now it's in the perfect state that I want it to move on to the next phase. The next phase is, grab one of my pliers. Okay, these are my round nose pliers. And I'm going to have a class as well that explains what each plier is used for. And I always keep my pliers color coded so I can see them right away for what I want to use it for. But this has a round nose, as you can see. Let me see it. You see the tip of these is like round. And then you have different shapes. Like the tip of this is flat. Okay, you even have some that are like curved, like that. So all of these have a purpose. You will see these for years on Amazon. You'll have no idea what they're used for. I'll break all that down for you. So now what I'm going to do is each one of these little ripples, I'm going to bend it outward. Okay, so I'm just going to go one by one, bending each one outward. I'm going to use these pliers. One by one, I'm going to bend them outward. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking the metal. It's so soft, I can just take my thumb and push it like that. Okay, and then I move on to the next tooth. I just push it forward. Because I'm basically bending each one of the little ripples like that. You see? Okay, so I'm gonna do that real quick, real fast. Okay, almost done. Almost done. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, last one. 7. Okay, so now I have all these ripples at the top bent out like that. Now, here's the cool part. Can anyone guess what this is going to be? Any ideas? Anyone want to text or message? Nope. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take the round nose pliers. I'm going to grip it right in the center. Hold on a second.
Michael, somebody wants to guess. Should I let them mention it, what they think?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, Lois. Tell us what you think.
And look, I think it will be a flower.
You are correct.
Oh, good.
Your prize is an extra day of eternal life. Okay. So yes, it's absolutely going to be a flower. Specifically, it's going to be a rose. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking my round nose pliers and I just took it and I pinched one end of it. Because I heated the metal and made it so soft, I'm just going to bend it. Keep bending it around, bending it around, bending it around, bending it around. See what I'm doing? Just wrapping it around, wrapping it around. It's already starting to form. And the nice thing too is, another reason why I'm using affordable metals like brass and copper and things like that is because we can do this together. So that way you can actually see it forming right in front of you. Not just watching me do it, but you can actually be doing it yourself. Little part. Now, you can already see that this is kind of dark, but the flower is starting to form. And I have an example of what it looks like when I take it out of the acid. Just give me a second. Hey, I just dropped it. Okay, here it is. This is an example of what it looks like. Take it out of the acid. All right. And so you can do that as a yellow rose. You can do that as sterling silver, a white flower. You can also do it in copper, which gives you a beautiful rose color, especially when you heat it. I'll show you also too how to get different colors out of metals. And you can use this as, I'll show you how to turn this into a nice pair of stud earrings, pendant. And tonight I'm going to show you how to do it as a ring. Okay, so that's our flower. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the ring parts because we want to make it to a ring. So I like to contrast colors. Like I like to have mixed metals. I think it looks really beautiful. Like when you have like yellow gold on top of white gold or yellow gold on top of silver. Another cool thing about that is if you have a silver ring and it has maybe like a silver flower on top, you can sell it for a certain price. But when you have a little gold flower on top, the gold may be just a little bit of gold. Like it may only add $5 to the cost of the ring. But because it's made of gold, in people's minds, it's worth a lot more. So whereas the same ring that you could sell for $40, because you added a little touch of gold to it that only costs you $5 more, you can actually charge $80. And your closest competitor will be selling it for $150. So you can be selling it for 80, 100, 120, and people will still will happily buy it because it already has that little piece of gold in it. Gold has been so heavily marketed into people as this valuable metal, which it is, that there are ways that you can take advantage of that market and use it to your advantage. That's what it's all about, using things to our advantage. So we're going to take this piece of silver, and it's very hard right now. And I'm going to do my annealing, or not annealing, but my softening technique again to get this piece of silver nice and soft and malleable so I can make it into a ring. Once again, you're going to watch me. I'm going to heat it. And when it starts to glow, I take the fire off of it. And you may be asking yourself, aren't those films dangerous? They're not the worst, but again, I have a ventilation system. It's above me, and it immediately sucks all the films away. And especially like when I'm using like solder and flux, I have like a multi system that pulls those films away. And I'll show you how to set that up in your own house. Now, if you listen carefully, you're going to hear me quench this in water. Everybody hear that? Okay. So off to the side, I got a little bit of water. Now, this is one of my ventilation systems. It's like a little fan. So usually when I solder, I'll put this over top of my surface, my soldering surface, and it'll pull the air up, and there's like a hood over top of here that it sucks it straight away. So I don't get to breathe it. But if you have a house and you got a garage out back, you can always work out back, or you can work outdoors on the back porch or something like that, or open a window, get a cross ventilation. So now the metal is nice and malleable. This is a very thick piece of metal. I'm literally able to bend it with my hands. So that's something that a lot of people don't know, but you will learn that in this class, how to get metal to do what you want. This is called a ring mandrel. But you may be wondering, well, how do you turn this into a ring? So this is called a ring mandrel. And you'll notice there are little numbers all along the ring mandrel, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So once you know a client's ring size, you put it on the section of the ring mandrel where the client's ring is, so maybe like size 6, and then you just bend it around, just like that. Now, I got strong hands. I've been doing this for a long time. I make it look easy. I know. You may be thinking, yeah, but is it going to be that easy for me to bend? Well, no, it may not be that easy for you to bend, but you can always use pliers. Take your pliers, and you hold it onto the ring mandrel like that. And then it's a lot easier to hold and bend. And the reason why I kept such a long piece of metal is because the longer it is, the easier it is to bend. Okay? But after a while, your hands will get used to it. Okay, so now I got the metal bit around it, and I usually will overlap it a little bit. See that? It's nice and pretty much perfectly bent around the shape that I want. Now, once I solder it, I'm going to show you how I straighten it back out. But it's bent around the size, and I got it to where the customer size would be. Okay, so now I'm going to take the ring off, and I'm going to use my cutters to cut the portion of the ring that I'm going to solder together. So right where it overlaps, you're just going to cut it right in the middle. And I have this is protective eyewear, and this is also protective eyewear, so you would of course have all that on. So I'll just cut it right in the middle. Now what you're going to notice is where I cut it, one side is fairly flat, but the other side kind of has a point. I'm trying to get this clear on the camera. And we want to change that. We want both sides to be flat. So I'm going to open this up, and this is why we heat it, so the metal is nice and soft and we can move it around. So I'm going to take my fingers, I'm going to twist it in 2 different ways, just like you do with a keychain, putting a key, you're doing the same thing, but trust me, this is a lot softer than that. So now the metal looks like that. And the nice thing about these little hand drills is you can change out the tips very easily. I just give it a little twist, take the tip out. Now I got my sanding tip on it. I'm gonna lock it. And now I'm gonna use my foot pedal, and it's spinning now. See it spinning? Now it's a sanding surface. And I'm just gonna touch this to it. That's gonna sand it straight down flat. Now I have this, now one side is spinning towards you, another side is spinning towards me. So the way that's spinning towards you, that's the surface I'm gonna sand it on. Because if I split it on this side, and it slips out of my hand, it can fly back toward me. So I'm gonna put my goggles on so I can see a little closer. I'm gonna hold this nice and firm. I'm just gonna give it a medium spin. And it sands it down nice and flat. I'll do the other side for good measure. Sands it down nice and flat. And so now you'll see that when I put it back together, both sides touch almost perfectly. And the reason why we want to do that And I know I'm moving kind of fast. That's just because I want you to get a feel for what the course shows. But in the actual course, it's slowed down. You'll have time to ask questions, and I'll make sure everybody got it. But the reason why I'm doing that is because when you're soldering and you're adding solder to it, if there's the less space there is in the joint, the easier your job is going to be. So that's why I sanded it down flat. So if you got two pieces that are like this and you're gluing them together, it's a better stick than if you got two pieces that are like that. Okay. Sometimes when you cut your metal, the one piece will look like this and the other piece will look like that. You want them both to be like that. So when you solder it, boom. Now, so we're going to solder this piece of metal together. Now I'm going to explain to you what the concept of soldering is. Soldering is basically gluing. Yep, it's basically gluing. If you know how to glue two things together, you know how to solder. The difference with solder is it involves heat, flux, and the metal has to be clean. Heat, flux, and the metal has to be clean. Now, clean doesn't mean you wash it with dish soap. Clean means you let the metal sit in a little bit of acid. It takes all the oxidization off of the metal. Oxidization is the black stuff that, you remember this rose right here, how it got dark? That's oxidization. So you don't want that on it when you're soldering. Now, there are chemicals that you can put it in where it will basically clean it while you're soldering, and there are torches you can use. That's why this torch is $4,000, because there's a chemical that comes out of it when you solder that you don't have to oxidize. Okay, so for that convenience, you pay an extra $3,700. But if you're willing to just use a little this stuff right here that's called flux, boom, you save yourself a whole lot of money and a lot of headache. Now we're ready to solder this piece together, and I have what's called my third hand. This is another thing you can get on Amazon for a very good price. It's just a device that holds things for you, and you can shape it and twist it any way you want. So I'm going to pull out my third hand, and I'm going to set this up. You see it just pinches like that. I'm going to set this up. It's going to hold my sterling silver ring in place. I'm going to turn around so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Now, this is a piece of medium sterling silver solder. I'm going to cut a little piece off my cutters. Strip. So I want you to think of this as like those little tubes of crazy glue. Okay? It's the same kind of concept. The difference is, in order for this to be able to, instead of squeezing a drop of this out of a tube, you have to get everything all hot. And then when you touch this to it, it flows just like glue. Now, this right here has a lower melting temperature than this does. So the concept of soldering is you're bringing this just below its melting temperature. But because this has a lower melting temperature, it's ready to melt once this is at a certain temperature. So once this is at a certain temperature and you got them all in the same range, right? This is ready to melt. And when it's ready to melt, there's a way that you'll visually be able to tell it's ready to melt. I have a class and I'll show you all of that. And then you just touch it to it just like you would that little vial of crazy glue, and it melts right where you want to go. Another thing about solder is that solder flows wherever it's hottest. So with a piece of metal, if you want the solder to flow over here, you don't necessarily have to put it over there. You can just put more heat over there and the solder will work its way over to the heat. So another thing I'm gonna do is show you how to move solder around the way you want. That's one individual class though. So I'm gonna use my, these are soldering prongs. And the reason why I use these is I think it's kind of obvious, because if I'm holding this with my hand, it's going to burn me. So I'll put it in these, and I can hold these nice safe pads just like you do with these, basically the same type of material that's on your pots and pans. And now you can do everything and there's no burning yourself. So another part of soldering is, you may have heard this term, is called flux. You have to treat the surface of the material with flux first. And what flux does is, when you coat or treat the surface with flux, it prevents the metal from oxidizing wherever that flux is. So it's going to keep that metal clean underneath the heat. Because when metal gets hot, it likes to grab the particles that's in the air and suck it to itself and blacken those particles. The flux basically puts a coat over top of the metal that prevents it from doing that. And flux is, affordable. You can get it on Amazon for quite cheap. So I have what's called, this is a soldering pick. You can also use an eyelash brush. What's it called? A nail brush or any type of little tiny brush. And my soldering pick, I just drape it on there, but you can baste it on there with a little paintbrush or whatever you want. You just want to make sure it covers all sides. And also it's in a liquidy enough state that it's flowing down in between the cracks. And that's enough. Okay, now I have it coated with flux. And next thing I'm going to do is get everything nice and hot. My little micro torch. So I'm going to put the heat on this section right here. Now, I could put the heat on this first, but what you'll notice is this immediately starts to ball up and melt. Do you see that happening? Because this has a lower melting temperature than this does. Whereas I can leave the heat on here for quite some time and it doesn't melt. And I'm moving it around. And again, I have a whole class devoted to soldering that goes into more detail. The soldering can be very complex. This is basically just to kind of show you. And once it starts to glow a little bit pinkish, you should see it on camera. Now you'll notice something very cool. Notice where I put the flux, the metal is staying silver. Whereas where I didn't put the flux, you see how the metal is turning dark? But that's what flux does. It keeps the metal clean so that it can take the solder. All right, so let me try something real quick. I think if I turn this backlight off, maybe so, you can see a little bit better how the metal is changing. It starts to glow red, and that's when I'm going to put the solder on. See it starting to glow red? See what just happened? Solder just jumped right onto it like crazy glue. I'm gonna put a piece on there. You can see it a little bit better. See that little teeny piece of solder sitting on the top there? Watch what happens when it. It's right onto it. And again, for the actual class, I'm going to have a nice overhead camera set up so you can see closely, and I'll share, switch to different cameras so that we get a better view. But that bond is now sealed. Now this is one joined piece of metal, and it's ready to be made into a ring. I'm going to cut my torch off. And I'll go ahead and get that into the cold water. Now I can start touching. Okay, so now that's my ring, and it's not bad, pretty decent round, but certainly not perfectly round. So what I'm going to do is, there's a bulge of metal on that inside there that I need to clean up. So I'm going to take my my drill. I think somebody needs to be muted. Okay, so now I'm going to take this is called a diamond sander. It has little bits of diamond on it, and you'll notice the shape is ideal for fitting inside of this ring. So I'm just going to go inside there with my diamond bit. I'm gonna cut my drill on not too fast. Right now I have it set to, and I have a drill class as well. I have my drill set to 7, speed 7, and I'm just gonna run it inside of there, just like that. Just gonna shaving it down inside. See that? Just moving my hand back and forth like that, shaving that down. And because the shape is almost the same roundness as the ring itself, I barely have to move it. I can pretty much just rely on the shape. And rounds it out very nicely. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to round it out a little bit on the top as well. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking this and I'm going over it like that. Sand down the extra solder. All right, get that nice and smooth on top. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my ring mandrel. And my ring mandrel is the way that I'm going to get this nice and straight. Now, when I have my overhead camera, I'm going to show you the most comfortable way to work, which is down on your lap. But for now, I'll do it up in front of you. Now, for this, I'm going to use my cowhide hammer. And the reason why I'm using my cowhide hammer, which is on the tool list, is because it's very hard to the touch, but it's much softer than metal. And with hammers, you have all types of different hammers. You have brass hammers. This is a hammer that's made out of brass. You have cowhide hammers, you have plastic hammers, you have steel hammers, you have copper hammers. And these are for all different types of applications. So the nice thing about this is, if you use the regular, let's say like claw hammer, steel hammer, this is gonna it's gonna alter the shape of the metal. So if this was a round piece of wire, it's gonna flatten. Or if this wire had intricate details or patterns or even diamonds in it, it's gonna destroy that. Whereas a cowhide hammer, the cowhide is not strong enough to break a diamond. It's not strong enough. I mean, it's leather, basically. It's hardened leather. So it's much softer than most metals, for all metals, really. So I'm gonna just tap it, because the purpose is not to damage the surface of the metal, but to make it conform perfectly to this round shape of this mandrel. Okay? So it's a little awkward for me to tap this from the side, but I'm doing this so you can really see what it is I'm doing. And as I'm tapping it, I'm turning it. I'm also squeezing it on there nice and tight. I'm tapping kind of downward. I'm turning it as I tap it. Otherwise, I can use my thumb to hold it. Turn it as I tap. And as you can see, the shape now is pretty much perfectly round. Now, another step I'm going to do is I have these little steel blocks. I have 2 of them. And usually what I'll do is, because I want to get the metal is round, but you notice a little bit kind of warped. See how it's a little warped from the side? So I put it in between these 2 blocks. Right here like this. I sandwich it in between. And you can put it on directly on your bench. It's very loud if you do it that way. Or you can put it on your knee. I'm just hammering metal. So this is what I'm doing on my knee. I'm just hammering the top of that like that. What that does is it brings it perfectly flat. See that? And it also re-hardened the metal. Remember, we heated it and got it to a soft state. Now it's hardened again. And you want it as hard as possible, because when people are wearing it, they're grabbing umbrellas, they're grabbing steering wheels, they're grabbing door handles. All that will bend the bottom of it. So if you've ever had a ring and you notice the bottom of it keeps bending, it's either because the metal was not hardened or it was made too thin. That's why. So when we just flattened it in between these two blocks, that's how you harden metal. Whenever you hammer it, it hardens it. Whenever you heat it, it softens it. Okay. Okay, so now we got our round ring, we got our little flower, and now we're going to get this flower on top. Now you've already seen a sneak peek of how I solder. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this ring down on top of it like that. And I'm going to use my, maybe my third hand might help with this. Yeah, third hand should be fine. So I'm going to just wedge all of this in between my third hand. See if it'll fit. It might be a little big. Yeah, I think it should be fine. Oh, yeah, it's perfect. Okay. So now everything is wedged in between my third hand. I got it straight. You see how it's holding it? I'm going to make sure it's straight. That's another thing with jewelry. You do have to be well, depending on the kind of jewelry you're making, the more expensive it is, the more of a perfectionist you want to be. It's one thing about jewelry. You do have to be very precise and make sure everything is right. But this is more laid back jewelry, and the jewelry I'm teaching you is much more laid back jewelry. It's not like you have to be perfect. I make diamond rings, and for that, everything has to be perfect. You know, they have a proposal Sunday. It's got to be there by Friday. You know, if he proposes and the ring size is wrong, I'm in trouble. You know, if we promised her rose gold and I give him yellow gold, I'm in trouble. But with this jewelry, it's a little more laid back. Okay, much less of a headache. So I got my third hand holding everything together. I'm going to put a little flux on it, because what the flux does is it keeps the section of it that I'm soldering from oxidizing, keeps it clean, so to speak, so that when I put my heat and metal on it, it doesn't change all kinds of crazy colors, and it'll hold the solder just fine. Now, soldering is a technique that is so coveted. I meet kids all the time who are graduates from FIT and other like major schools. And I know people who have websites that make $200,000-300,000 a year, and they don't know how to solder. They've asked me, can you show me how to solder? Soldering is a coveted skill. When you know how to solder different metals like fine metal, gold, platinum. Platinum is a certain way to solder. It's really like three main ways to solder. There's platinum soldering, which is not really soldering, it's more like welding. You can do some soldering with platinum. Platinum is such a high-end metal that you can solder, you usually solder platinum with 18 karat gold, meaning you bond the metal with a lesser metal, which is gold, or you can bond it with itself. Gold soldering is more delicate, and you have to use special fluxes. The difference between solders is mainly like the fluxes that you use. Platinum, there's no flux. Gold, you use, these are the fluxes you use. This is the chemical that you soak the gold in, and that basically keeps it from oxidizing. And this is a chemical that you put on the gold, which acts as the actual flux. Because gold is very, very finicky, and it has to be very clean in order for it to solder. And it's usually like little small details. Whereas with silver, you're using what's called handy flux. Okay, so now we got our handy flux, and we're ready to start soldering. So I'm gonna cut my torch back on. Already got my solder piece cut out, and I got my tongs that I'm holding it with. And again, I know this feels a little complex. I'm moving kind of fast, but remember, just a demo. The class is going to be much more slowed down, one at a time. Right? Okay. So I'm going to solder the first part, both sides. Now, this is another tricky thing about this ring. Brass has a very high melting temperature, much higher than silver. So you have three melting temperatures here that you have to kind of manage. You have the brass melting temperature, the silver melting temperature, and then the flux melting temperature. Three different melting temperatures. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus the heat on the brass first and then the silver second, because If I focus on the silver first, then the silver might melt before the brass does. And I don't want that to happen, because if the silver starts melting, it'll ruin the original shape of the ring. And I don't want that to happen. So I got one side soldered, joined, and now I'm going to solder the other side. And again, we'll have nice overhead cameras for you so you can see exactly what's happening. You won't miss anything. Because the purpose of the class is not for you to watch me make jewelry. It's for you to be able to make jewelry. All right? Now, see how dark everything is? The rose is dark. Silver has like a gray tone to it. Watch what happens when I put this in the acid. This is one of the first things that fascinated me as a kid, what my father taught me. I'll put it in the acid. My acid is off to the side there. Let it sit for a few minutes. Not a few minutes. Typically, I will let it sit for like a minute, but acid usually works immediately. It pretty much immediately starts working. This is taking a little bit longer. And I'll have a camera to show you exactly what's going on with the acid. I'll go ahead and take it out. Now, acid does two things. Number one, it can take all of the fire scale off, depending on how long you let it sit. But what I just did this time, for the sake of time, is I just let it sit long enough to loosen the fire scale up, because that makes it easier for me to sand it off. But already I have a ring pretty much made with my little rose on top. See that? Just that quickly. Less than an hour, we made a ring. Now, we're not done, not done. I'm going to show you, because this is not quite to the point where you can sell it. So this is where filing and polishing comes into play. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my file. And again, you can get these on Amazon, to take the fire scale off. See how it's starting to come off? And if you know how to file your nails, which I know a lot of you ladies do, you know how to file metal. It's about the same. Well, hopefully your nails are not as hard as metal. You might need to change your diet. But no, it's basically the same as filing metal, filing your nails. And that's a class too, where I'm going to show you how to shape and file metal. And then it gets the fire scale off, brings it down to its nice silver state. Okay. So I'm going to file the outer edge of it. Around it. And also I can use my flex shaft drill to do the same thing. That actually works a whole lot better and a lot faster. That. I'm sand it all off and clean it up with my flex shaft drill. Clean the inside and the outside. That's back down to the beautiful silver original coating. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to polish this, because we want it to look finished and refined and like something that you can wear or something you can sell. And polishing is super complex. And this is where you definitely need classes, because with polishing, you have what's called polishing compounds. This is called a cutting compound. This is called a brightening compound, or a buffing compound. With polishing, if you literally look at polishing tools, there's literally hundreds of tools, hundreds. And the jewelry industry is not big on telling you what things do because they want you to spend thousands of dollars trying to figure out which is the exact tool. It took me 20 years to learn exactly which grit of cutting compound to use to polish jewelry. And it took me almost the same amount of time to learn about this company right here that makes this cutting compound to polish jewelry. To work my way through all the different trial and error, and trying things, for years I thought I had the very best. And then I had a colleague, I saw him working with this little blue stuff and blew my mind the results he was getting. And then I found out about this. This stuff is cheap. This is maybe like $16. This will literally last you probably 2-3 years. And this is about the same and last you the same amount of time. Now, the way this works is for polishing, you can use your same tool, the Flex Shaft tool. And this is called like a little brush head. It's just like a brush, polishing brush. It's just a disc and it has like little soft hairs on it. And you also have like little cotton polishing brushes like this here. Just like a bunch of circular pieces of cotton cloth, like a tablecloth put together. This is it's like almost like a Brillo pad, but it's plastic. And this is cool because what this does is, see how my rose is no longer that pretty yellow? I can leave in the acid for like an hour and it'll like start to come back. But for the sake of time, I'm going to show you how you can kind of more quickly, almost Brillo, bring it back to its original color. You see how my smoke is going up? See that? That's because I got a whole system off camera that basically takes everything away from my breathing area. Okay, so what I'm doing now is, you see on the sides, it's bringing the color right back to that nice yellow. Now, as I'm working, this is the nice thing about jewelry. There's no rules. Well, there are some rules. Things got to be the right size, stuff like that. But it's an art form, so you could be creative. So I was going to leave this in acid and bring it all the way back to perfect yellow. But I'm noticing that the black oxidization does something nice. Because it's oxidized or darkened or blackened down inside the crevices, it actually shows more details of the flower. So I'm just going to use this to put highlights and leave it dark down inside because I actually like the way that looks. It has the aged antique look that I think, has more pop to it than it just being perfectly all yellow. And that's the nice thing about jewelry is that as you go, you just do what works, If it works, then you do that, and it doesn't always have to be, it's not real hard as far as rules, what's going to work and what doesn't work. Yeah, and I think this has a really nice look to it. I'll show you. Yeah, you can see the details of the flower much better. And that's because of that fire scale, or that dark scale down inside the crevices, this tool can't reach. So I'm just going to leave it there. I think it looks great. Okay. Now, some artists will leave it just like this, not polished at all. And it has a rustic look and it looks nice. I'm going to polish it because I want you to see how polishing works. And I have a class devoted entirely to just polishing, all the grits that you can use and the different techniques. But I'm going to polish at least part of this today because I want you to see how polishing works. So basically polishing is, I keep it simple. I use 2 different wheels. One is for cutting or taking scratches out. One is for buffing and giving its final shine. And these are very small handheld polishers, but I have a bigger polisher system over here off to the side. And in that class, I'll show you how to use that. I'm not going to cut that on right now because I have a safety ventilation system that takes the dust away and it's very loud and you won't be able to hear anything I'm saying. So for the actual class, then I'll be better suited for that. So I'm going to take this right here. This is my buffing wheel, and it basically takes the scratches out. And I'm going to use this polish right here, which once again, and you can see everything going up. See that? That's safety. So I'm going to use this right here to polish it on the side. Right down a little bit. And what this is going to do is give it a nice patina on the sides of the metal. Everything will be nice and uniform. I'm sorry. I'm basically I have it spinning and I'm just like brushing it over the metal like that. And it's very similar to the motion as if you were peeling a piece of fruit. not real complicated. I'm holding this in this hand right here, and I'm just brushing it off to the side like that. It's like if I was peeling a piece of fruit. Now, what this does is there are a bunch of little micro scratches in the metal that you can barely see. This takes those micro scratches out. It's just like if you work with sandpaper, you know, you can't go straight to the fine sandpaper. You got to go with the rough grit, then the medium grit, work your way down towards the fine. It's the same with polishing. This is more like the rough grit, but the nice thing about polishing is you can just basically use 2 grits. This basically takes all the rough scratches out. Now I can go straight to the fine. The fine is always also the most dusty, so I'm going to put on an extra fan to help to pull it up into my ventilation system. Put it over my whoops. As you can see, I'm just running over it like that. You can already see how it's starting to shine, how it's starting to polish up. And so now I'm just gonna hit the top of it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna polish it off to the side. Give me like 2 minutes because I want you to see a little bit faster how it comes out. So I'm gonna polish it off to the side. But again, the class, I would have the camera on it so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay. So this is basically what it comes out looking like when it's polished. We polish the top of it. Just like that, you got a nice ring that you can wear or you can sell. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, how much could I sell this ring for? Well, for sterling silver, if you did this in copper especially, you could sell this ring for, it depends on where you are. Like in a place like New York City, 120 bucks all day long. If you were wholesaling it, you could probably sell it for maybe like $60. But if you just wanted to sell it straight to the public for $60, you can do that as well. In fact, I made a living in New York City, straight out of Bethel, for about 4 or 5 years selling stuff just like this right here. And I'm also going to have a section of the class where I'll show you about trade shows, how to get into trade shows, how to get into different venues, because there's all kinds of craft shows in different states, different towns you can do. There's different ways you can go about selling jewelry. The easiest way is, of course, to have a website. I'll show you how to build your website very cheaply in a weekend. And also, too, you can sell it through Instagram now and other forms of social media. So just like that, you got a ring made in under an hour. And actually, this could have been done a lot faster because keep in mind, I'm talking to you as I'm making this. So I have techniques for the way I make things where I usually make things. In fact, let me see if I can show you. Give me 1 second. It's always better when you can actually see it. Ed, let me know when I need to jump off because I don't want to keep everybody past their bedtime.
No, this is wonderful, Michael. That was wonderful, and you're a good teacher, excellent teacher. Do what you want to do, and I think the friends can continue a little bit longer, but maybe we could allow about 20, 30 minutes for questions if they have anything afterwards when you're done.
All right, sounds good. So once, oh, I'm gonna pull up one of my images. We're gonna show you the kind of stuff we're actually making. I think it'd be good if you see a picture of what it really comes out like, rather than just showing you on screen. Wait a second. Another thing I'll teach you to do too is, with the skills that you have, is how to purchase things that are partially made and make changes to them. Sometimes there's things like on websites like Amazon that you can buy, and you can like just add little stones to them, and it'll, up the value of it. So I'll show you how to do that as well. It's not always about necessarily making things from scratch. Sometimes you can just work smarter, and it'll, enable you to, you can enhance things that are already there in such a way that it does a lot of the work for you. There's an album I wanted to show you that has all of the type of stuff you'll literally be making. I had it put aside. Let's see. I apologize. I should have had this set aside.
Michael, a question has come up. You want to take it now while you do that? Or you want
Sure. No, you can give it.
Somebody's asking, how much are the classes and how do you take them?
Okay, so the classes are $25 each. I have one class on, right now the schedule is Monday and Friday, but I do have some flexibility. So Monday, Friday, even a Saturday may be possible. But preferably I like to keep as many of them as possible to one day. So I guess once I'll let the group decide which is the best option for them, depending on how many people we get. Also don't want the classes to be too huge. So if I have to break it up into 2 days, that's fine as well. But right now, those are the 2 days that are set aside, Mondays and Fridays.
What would be like a minimum amount of to make a class?
What do you mean? Preferably like 10 people. At least would like to have like 10 people. I can handle 20, 30, 40, but anything less than 10 is kind of like, or prefer if I had, and I think we almost kind of have that. We almost have like about that many people who have expressed interest. So
okay,
I'm sure after this evening, we'll pretty much be ready to rock and roll.
And then it's through Zoom, right?
Yep, everything is through Zoom.
And how long does each class last?
1 hour.
1 hour, very good. If somebody missed a class, could it be recorded and sent to them, or you haven't thought about that yet?
Absolutely. So the purpose of once you pay for the class, of course, I don't want it to be a situation where you don't come to any classes and I'm just sending them all onto your recording. But every now and then, time and unforeseen occurrences, you may miss a class or two a month, and that's perfectly fine. And it's not 2 classes a week. It's just 1 class a week, but it's 2 different available slots. So you can come to the Monday one or you can come to the Friday one. So I have it stretched out 4 classes per month, so once every Friday. I'm thinking it may, like, it kind of depends on how extensively people want to get into it, but the whole course will run 6 months. But realistically, by 2-3 months, you'll definitely know quite a lot. So if you just wanted to do like 2 months at a time, you'll know plenty. If you want to do like the whole 6-month course, you'll know plenty. But if you really want to get the full gambit, learn everything about, this jewelry making, and also how to market it, how to sell it. If you're really interested in getting to the point where you can actually sell jewelry and online and make a living from it, then, the entire 6 months will be the best option.
Great.
But,
okay, I think some did not see it. Were you all able to see it? Because some they couldn't see information. Could you all see it now? Are you seeing my screen? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, so let's do it one more time. Browse classes. It's ode2art.com. All the way to the bottom of this list of classes we offer is crafts. And then here you see jewelry design. You click that. You can read about it here. And there's Michael. And then right here where it says add to my classes, you click. And there you proceed to check out. You're not paying anything at this point. You're just asking for information. You fill this out, place order. All that means is that you're going to be sending me an email, and I send the email to Michael, and then he'll contact you within 24 hours. You decide at that point whether you want to register for the first month. And the way I set up my school, you just pay every month. You pay every month, and you can keep going. So like Michael said, if it goes 6 months, you just pay each month at a time. So if there's $25 a class, obviously that's $100 a month, and you just keep going until you finish. And that's the way it works. That way, if for some reason you felt you needed to back out, then you just back out, and no problem, no need for refunds. You did learn, you did give it a chance. But you know, the dividends you may get out of this might be really good, because Michael's a good teacher, and he told me in conversation that he can make pretty decent money in what he does, and could be even what we call lucrative business, and you're going to be working at your own home. So that's pretty nice possibility. Okay, back to you, Michael.
All right, let me share my screen. So I had another folder, but I wasn't able to locate it. So I'm going to just show you this folder real quick. I had a separate folder I wanted to show you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So these are the type of things that I'm going to show you how to make. So these are very popular earrings. So I've researched things that are popular, easy for you to make, and I know it's going to sell because I've sold them for years, and you can get all the parts basically on Amazon. So everybody's familiar with hoop earrings. They're like the most popular earring. If I just wanted to sell hoop earrings, I probably could just do that because they're so popular, they sell so well. I'm also going to show you how to make personalized jewelry. So that involves sawing metal. Okay, it's in various different shapes. So as you can see, it's not just like folksy, hokey jewelry. It's actual stuff that you're going to be learning how to make that you can actually sell. Pendants. I'm going to show you how to set all kinds of stones, particularly cabochon stones. This actual stuff that you'll learn how to make in the class. And then again, personalized jewelry. Stack rings are super popular. I also have a section that talks about, shows you how to make chains. So this is a chain called a Miami Cuban chain. I'm actually going to show you how to make this as well. A smaller version of it. These are wildly popular. And I'm going to show you how to make chains in general. This is the type of stuff that I make now. This is more high-end type of jewelry, so you have to it's much more costly to make these types of items. These are all things that I've actually physically made. This stuff, not so much, just because this takes years to learn how to do it. It'd be very difficult for me to show you a complex class on how to do that, but a lot of it I can. And you don't need to be able to make a lot of this stuff to be able to make a fantastic living. You know, you can make a great living making very simple items. Things like this right here, you can make a great living just making very simple things like this. And again, like I said, we're going to be doing like a lot of overhead views because I want you to take you straight into my actual working process. So I have cameras that can give you that much detail. Okay, so you'll see exactly what it is that I'm doing. And that way there's no, like, I don't have to be dipping off camera. There's no guesswork. Okay, because you have to be able to see what I'm doing so that you can, 100% be able to replicate exactly what it is that I'm doing. All right, so it's a good class. Try to make it as affordable as possible. Kids are paying top dollar at university for this. But I wanted to make it available to my brothers and sisters at a price that's very affordable and will enable them to, won't take up too much of people's time, just 1 hour a week, and all sit down together and learn a really great skill.